Discover 8 spine-chilling encounters in cursed Appalachian houses, hidden terrors exposed. Emma's heart raced as she stepped into the old house. Shadows loomed in every corner, whispering secrets coated in years of dust. The air, thick with a smell that felt ancient, clung to her like a restless spirit. She was desperate for a fresh start with her kids, Lily and Jacob, but this place seemed like it had its own agenda. A single goal: scare her away. Late into unpacking one night, a soft creaking echoed through the halls, too rhythmic to be coincidence. Emma's breath hitched as she ventured towards the living room. The rocking chair swayed gently, an eerie invitation. Goosebumps prickled her skin. The sensation of being watched wrapped around her, tightening. She glanced out the window, and the dense woods seemed to lean in, eager to listen. Days dragged on, each one filled with cautious smiles from neighbors who offered help but kept their distance. There was a friendliness layered with something uneasy, a polite estrangement that nagged at Emma's mind. Laughter often floated back from those woods, chilling, as if it belonged to another time, another soul. It didn't belong to her children. One night, while soothing Jacob to sleep, echoes of distant giggles vibrated through the walls. Emma's heart stopped. She strained to hear, the laughter turning to shrieks, wild and frantic. It was too late to pretend she was just tired. Adrenaline raced through her veins, pushing her to her feet with a knot of dread tightening in her stomach. The sound swirled around her, painting a picture of play but carrying an edge of something dark. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. That evening, while sorting through old books in the musty attic, a yellowed newspaper clipping slipped from a cracked cover. Her hands trembled as she read about local children who had vanished, names scrawled like a warning beneath the date, some of them so close to now it made her blood run cold. Emma felt the air around her thicken, her mouth dry as she pieced together the hollowness of the town around her. It wasn't merely tired old houses they'd left behind. It felt more like long-held secrets that seethed just beneath the surface. As the days turned into unease, Emma's instincts sharpened. She noticed the sheriff's gaze, watchful, heavy-lidded, as if he were burdened by the very weight of the town's history. Just old stories, he'd whispered dismissively, yet something flickered in his sunken eyes. She needed answers before those dark woods swallowed her whole. One stormy night, as thunder rattled the windows, Emma, driven by desperation, made her way to the forest. The air was damp and thick, the trees twisted like fingers reaching out, almost daring her to turn back. Then, she stumbled upon an ancient tree with gnarled roots that twisted impossibly. The presence felt alive, almost impatient, waiting for her to uncover the remnants of darkness, the very secrets the townsfolk wished to keep buried. It was then that fear turned to something fiercer, a fight for her children's safety igniting within her. Every instinct screamed for her to leave, to run, yet the trees loomed larger, shadows deepening around her. Terror clutched at her throat, merging with newfound resolve. She was standing at the edge of a chasm of truth, one that threatened not just her sanity, but the lives of her children. And just as she turned to flee, a figure emerged from behind the thicket, someone she had never expected to see. The woods held their breath, waiting for her next move. What would she do now? Emma froze, her heart hammering as the shadow stepped into view. It was a man, disheveled, with wild eyes that glimmered with a frantic energy. "You shouldn't be here. Not at night." He glanced nervously over his shoulder, as if expecting something to pounce from the shadows. "Who are you?" She managed to stutter, her voice barely above a whisper. "Doesn't matter," he yelled, fear rippling through his words. "What matters is you're in danger. All of you. You have to leave before it comes for you." There was a wildness to his gestures, his hands flailing as he tried to convey the urgency of his warning. "Who is it?" Emma pressed, dread curling deep within her. "The devil of these woods. He hungers for children." His voice trailed off, swallowed by the darkness surrounding them. The weight of the trees pressed closer, their branches twisting like claws reaching for the unwary. "Children? No, no, please." Emma shook her head violently, fighting the hopelessness creeping up her spine. She thought of Lily and Jacob, tucked away in bed, blissfully unaware of the terror lurking. This has to be a mistake. It can't be real. He stepped closer, his breath ragged. "You've heard the laughter, haven't you? They never come back." Suddenly, lights flickered in the house behind her. It felt like a beacon of warmth, a safe haven against the cold, oppressive darkness of the forest. Emma's instincts told her to run, but all she could do was stand there, frozen. "What do you mean, who's laughing?" she demanded. The man's eyes widened as he peered deeper into the woods, as if he could see something that lurked just beyond the edges of the trees. "The ones who went missing, they play their games, still. The woods are their prison and the devil is their warden," he spat, trembling as he spoke. "He'll take yours too. You're not safe." A sudden gust of wind howled through the trees, sending cold tendrils crawling up her neck. Shadows danced with a life of their own. Emma felt it then, a shifting presence that made her skin crawl. It was as if the air itself thickened, laden with malice and hunger. "Get your kids. Go. Now." The man lunged forward, desperate eyes locked onto hers. "Follow me." Emma's instincts screamed at her to trust him, but doubt gnawed at her gut. What if he was as dangerous as the things he warned her about? She hesitated, torn between desperate hope and paralyzing fear. But the laughter echoed again, eerily sweet, spiraling through the trees. It sounded like Lily and Jacob. No. She couldn't let them fall into whatever was hunting them here. "Okay," she said, her voice trembling. "Lead the way." Before she could step forward, an unholy shriek echoed through the woods, sending shockwaves of terror through her entire being. The man's face paled, and he stumbled backward. "It's here. We have to hurry." Without thinking, Emma turned and sprinted toward the house, the man close on her heels. Fear flooded her body, but she couldn't look back. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but then came another sound, a thudding, pounding rhythm that felt alive, a heartbeat beneath the earth. As she reached the porch, she managed a glance over her shoulder. The silhouette of something monstrous emerged from the shadows, dark and twisted, its eyes glowing like embers. Emma's breath hitched. "Go! Go!" The man shouted desperately, urging her inside. But as she crossed the threshold, she was hit by a wall of silence, and the laughter stopped abruptly. Cold dread settled in the pit of her stomach. "What is happening?" she gasped, glancing around for her children. "Where are they?" The man's eyes widened in horror. "If they're still in the woods, you have to save them before it's too late." Emma felt the ground shift under her feet, and a dark realization began to settle. It wasn't just the woods that held secrets. Something in the house stirred, an ancient force waiting to be unleashed. She grabbed the nearest flashlight, resolve coursing through her veins. But was she ready to confront the truth? With every heartbeat, the house seemed alive, watching, waiting for her next move. Would she dare to return to the woods, where her children might be? As she steeled herself to venture back into the gloom, the earth rumbled ominously beneath her feet, sending her heart racing. She took a deep breath, knowing she had no choice but to face whatever awaited her in the darkness. Just outside, the laughter began again, but this time it sounded different, sinister, mocking, and far too close for comfort. Emma's blood ran cold. What awaited her beyond those walls, lurking just out of sight? She had to find out before it was too late. Emma's pulse pounded in her ears as she gripped the flashlight with trembling hands. The sudden silence inside the house felt suffocating, wrapping around her like a thick fog. Her heart raced not just with fear, but with the urgency to find her children. She rushed deeper into the dimly lit hallway, scanning the shadows. "Lily! Jacob!" She called, her voice echoing off the walls, swallowed by the oppressive air. No response came, only the creaking of the old house as if it were alive, shifting beneath her feet. The man, still lingering by the door, looked pale, his eyes darting around as if the walls themselves were closing in. "You can't stay here. The devil knows you're inside." He fumbled with the doorknob, panic rising in his throat. "What do you mean?" She shot a desperate glance at him. "What do I do? Rescue? Or plunge deeper into the unknown?" She hesitated, weighed down by dread. But the laughter, a chilling, childlike giggle, pierced the stillness again, sending a jolt of terror through her. "Follow it," he urged, hanging on to the last shred of his composure. "If they're here, they're trying to give you a sign. But be careful. If you see it, don't look into its eyes." His warning only added to the metal taste of fear in her mouth. Emma nodded, steeling herself. She had to do this. She turned her flashlight toward the staircase, its beam flickering against walls lined with long-forgotten family portraits. The faces seemed to watch her, their eyes hollow and accusatory. "Lily! Jacob!" She shouted again, her voice echoing against the wooden steps. The laughter persisted, circling around her but never revealing its source. She climbed the stairs, a thick tension building in the air with each step. The old wood creaked ominously underfoot, threatening to betray her. At the top, she paused, listening. The laughter faded, replaced by a soft whispering that felt almost intimate. "Emma, come play." It was sweet, enticing, but laced with a sinister edge that made the hair on the back of her neck stand on end. "Kids!" She breathed, her breath hitching as she felt the very walls pulse with an energy she couldn't explain. Suddenly, a door swung open down the hall, prompting her heart to race. Shadows slipped out like smoke, swirling and twisting. Emma gasped and stumbled back, gripping the banister. The door slammed shut. "Please!" she cried out, straining to hear anything at all. The man's warning echoed in her mind, a frantic dance of hysteria and dread. Behind her, she could sense the man's presence shifting. "We need to go now," he urged again, but she was rooted in place, a marionette tangled in its strings. In a weak moment of clarity, she thought of Lily's laugh, the pure joy of childhood. She couldn't abandon it. With renewed determination, Emma stepped forward, away from safety and into the encroaching darkness. She moved toward the door, gritting her teeth against the overwhelming fear. As she approached, a sudden howl erupted outside, a sound more animal than human. The man stumbled backward, eyes wide with horror. "Emma, stop!" he shouted, but the door seemed to call to her, pulling her in. With a deep breath, she reached for the knob, the metal cold beneath her fingers. The whispers swirled around her, louder now, almost pleading. Did they want her to open it? Could it be her children were waiting just beyond? But as she turned the knob, a surge of dread filled the air. The door creaked open slowly, revealing an abyss of darkness. The whispers morphed into a cacophony, echoing in her mind, drowning out rational thought. What crawled just beyond the threshold? Emma had breached the dark threshold, but what awaited her inside? As her foot crossed the line, cold fingers of fear wrapped around her throat. She was about to find out if she was too late. "Run!" the man screamed, but it was too late. The laughter enveloped her, and she stepped into the unknown, her fate entwined with the shadows. What had she unleashed by opening that door? The night was just beginning, and something ominous stirred in the darkness, ready to greet her. Emma stumbled through the door, her flashlight flickering wildly as she entered the pitch-black space. The air was thicker here, swirling with an uneasy energy that made her skin crawl. She couldn't shake the sensation that countless eyes bore down upon her from the shadows, hungry and waiting. "Lily! Jacob!" she shouted again, her voice trembling, barely echoing back to her ears. The darkness seemed to absorb her cries, amplifying the sense of isolation that clawed at her. She felt unmoored, suspended in the unending blackness. In the distance, she heard it again, soft giggles, then a high-pitched whine that morphed into a cacophony of childlike voices, swirling around her. Come play, they sang, sweet and terrible. Emma tightened her grip on the flashlight, forcing the beam to slice through the dark. It barely pierced the thick gloom, teasing the edges of what lay beyond. She took a cautious step forward, the floor beneath her feet damp and unsettling. A bead of cold sweat trickled down her spine as she moved deeper into the oppressive silence, compelled by the sounds of her children. Please, where are you? She whimpered, desperation creeping into her tone. They needed to be here, they had to be. Suddenly, a figure darted across her line of sight, no more than a shadow, but the image sent her heart racing. No. Wait. She cried, the sound tearing from her throat as panic set in. Did she just see one of them? Was it her child? Or something far more sinister? Stay away. The voice of the man rang in her mind, a last warning she hadn't heeded. She pressed forward, yearning to see familiar faces, hoping that the shadow was anything more than a trick of the light. Then, as if in response to her thoughts, a chill swept through the room, an icy gust of wind that tugged at her clothing like desperate fingers. Emma froze. The laughter intensified, wrapping around her, mingling with something darker. It twisted her stomach, an overwhelming sense of dread settling like a stone, and then she saw it, a glimpse of white in the corner of the beam. A porcelain doll, cracked and grinning, its eyes nearly missing. It sat propped against a wall, surrounded by tattered toys that had long since lost their warmth. Emma shuddered, recognizing the fear that gripped her. These toys had a life of their own, saturated with secrets and whispers of dark pacts long forgotten. Get out! Get out! Screamed a voice from somewhere deep within her, but she couldn't. She was frozen there, caught between the urgent cries of her children and the eerie stillness of the room. The laughter morphed again, jarring and dissonant. Emma, a small voice rang out, too sweet and too inviting. Why did you leave us? Her gut twisted. This didn't sound like her children. Where are you? She shouted, panic surging again. Come play with us, the voice echoed, now menacing. An overwhelming force tugged at her, pulling her toward the doll whose porcelain grin seemed to widen. With every ounce of strength, Emma turned away, focusing instead on a flicker of movement in the far corner. A shadow? Was it a child? Or something darker? The darkness throbbed around her, a living entity breathing in time with her heartbeat. As she took a step back, the entire house seemed to creak and groan, as if it were awakening from a slumber, angry that she had dared disturb it. The man. She needed to find him. But before she could pivot around, a sudden crash erupted from behind her. Startled, she turned, her breath hitching as she saw it, a figure rising from the shadows. It was tall and gaunt, its features obscured yet familiar. The laughter grew louder, shaking the very foundations of her sanity. Come play with us, Mommy. Emma's heart raced, her limbs refusing to obey her frantic mind. Fear gripped her throat like a vice. She took a step back, but the entity advanced, coiling around her like smoke, closing in with a soft, sinister whisper. What will you choose, Emma? Us or them? The question hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, the answer hidden beneath layers of dread. Would she sacrifice everything to save her children? As the figure loomed, its cold breath brushing against her neck, she knew she had to decide quickly. A climax was building. She felt it, the weight of choice, of sacrifice. But how long could she hold on against the encroaching darkness? Don't look into its eyes. The echo of the man still lingered in her mind. And just as the figure reached out, the room began to swirl, colors blending, darkness deepening, reality unraveling. What awaited Emma in that tide of shadow? Would she emerge with her children, or would she become part of this nightmare forever? Emma's surroundings blurred as the darkness swallowed her whole. She felt herself being pulled further into a chasm, spiraling down, the laughter ever present, echoing like a haunting melody that wrapped itself around her mind. Every pulse of her heart resonated with the sinister question, us or them? She gasped, the weight of the choice pressing down like a heavy shroud. Emma squeezed her eyes shut, hoping to block out the entity and the overwhelming voices begging her to stay. I have to find them, she whispered, forcing her feet to move, to turn away from the wall of darkness that edged closer, its icy breath chilling her very soul. With her flashlight flickering in a desperate dance, Emma stumbled through a narrow passage that had manifested before her. It led deeper into the house, but she felt the walls constricting like jaws ready to snap shut. The temperature dropped, and the hall felt alive, thick tendrils of shadow curling around her ankles, tugging and pulling, trying to drag her back into the suffocating void. Lily! Jacob! Emma cried out again, voice breaking, knowing they were somewhere in this cursed place. Suddenly, a crash echoed through the dark, shattering the maddening laughter. It was like thunder, loud and visceral, shaking the ground beneath her feet. Emma hesitated, heart thrumming wildly. Was that them? Mommy! Help us! The voices of her children cut through her fog of fear and desperation, sharp as glass. They were real. They had to be, but where? She pressed forward, guided by the flickering remnants of hope that ignited her spirit. Rounding a corner, she found herself in a dimly lit room, its walls adorned with peeling wallpaper that seemed to writhe under the beam of her light. Dull parts littered the floor, cracked faces staring up at her in a grotesque tableau. A shiver of realization crashed over her. This was no ordinary playroom, it was a chamber of horrors, a shrine to lost innocence. In the center stood a large, ornate mirror, its surface murky like troubled water. Something moved within. Emma's heart thudded against her ribs. She stepped closer, hypnotized by the flickering images reflecting back at her. It was a glimpse of her children laughing, running, but then something darker loomed behind them, a shadow stretching over their joy. The sound of their laughter warped into wails, like a chilling banshee-esque cry that pierced her heart. Get away from them! She screamed, feeling anger surge through her. Suddenly, the mirror rippled, and she felt a magnetic pull. No! Emma cried, scrambling backward, shaking her head furiously. I want to let you take them. The mirror shuddered violently, and with it, the light in the room dimmed. Shadows swirled faster, twisting into grotesque shapes that wriggled like nightmarish serpents. Emma felt an overwhelming fear beginning to engulf her. It wasn't just the remnants of her children's laughter echoing softly now, it was the laughter that surrounded her, gleeful and cruel, as if urging her to surrender, to join in a dreadful game. She turned, determined to find the exit. Out of the corner of her eye, she glimpsed a small figure slipping behind a door at the far end of the room. Jacob? She whispered, heart racing. Without thinking, she rushed toward it, hope ignited anew, yet just as she reached the door, the entity coiled around her once more, constricting, catching her breath in a painful grip. Emma struggled, her flashlight flickering into the depths, only to reveal that the door was bolted shut, the laughter rising around her, echoing with sinister delight. Help us, Mommy! The tiny voices cried again, now laced with desperation. Emma's mind raced. Who was she really fighting? What awaited her beyond the door? And how would she unlock the true horror that now gripped her soul? With a final, desperate surge of adrenaline, she pounded on the door with all her might, her heart screaming for the truth to set her children free. But the shadows drew closer, and in the flickering light, she glimpsed a pair of eyes wide and watching from the depths of the wicked. Darkness. Choose, Emma, they whispered, as the world around her began to twist again, what lay waiting on the other side. Would she find her children or uncover a darkness even more daunting? The shadows surged closer, nurtured by Emma's growing despair. Her pounding fists bruised against the door, the wood splintering slightly with her frantic attempts. Lily! Jacob! I'm coming! She shouted, her throat raw, her voice barely echoing back a cruel reminder of isolation. Each second felt like an eternity. The laughter worsened, morphing into shrieks of delight laced with malice. From the corner of her eye, a dark shape twisted and recoiled, like a snake preparing to strike. The grotesque eyes within the void flickered with hunger. With a sudden twist, the air shifted, and Emma felt a biting cold grip her heart. She closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and concentrated on the voices of her children. They were close, their cries of anguish wrapping around her like barbed wire. "I will save you." Emma steeled herself, her determination crystallizing in the face of fear. She turned back to the mirror, its glass reflecting her panic, her sweat-slicked skin, the depth of terror carved into her features. Its surface writhed, and she could almost hear her children beyond it, their desperate pleas merging with the torrent of laughter, a discordant symphony that pierced her soul. Emma lifted her flashlight high, aiming it straight into the murky depths of the mirror. "I will not be afraid," she screamed, hoping her defiance could shake the core of whatever malevolent force lurked within. The mirror cracked, spider-webbing beneath her harsh gaze. For one blinding moment, light exploded within its confines, revealing a scene that made her heart drop. It was a vision of her children, but they were trapped in a twisted landscape, a reflection of the playroom, distorted and grim. Dark hands clutched at their limbs, dragging them deeper into shadows. "No." Emma staggered back, breath hitching in her chest as the laughter morphed into a cacophony of taunting voices. She felt the darkness trying to lift her away, whispering promises of safety if only she would let go. "Choose," the voice echoed again, insistent, beckoning her. "Us or them." In a moment of desperate clarity, Emma lunged for the mirror's edge. With a bellowing scream, she slammed her palm against the cracked glass. "I choose them." The words ruptured from her like a geyser of raw emotion. The mirror pulsed, resonating with her fierce protection. The dark forms within recoiled, shrieking, their grip on her children wavering. Behind the shouts, Emma heard a shift, a call echoing through the void. "Mommy!" A rush of energy surged through her, a bond forged from love and desperation. She felt the shadows retract, catching glimpses of Lily and Jacob through the swirling chaos. Emma grasped the jagged edges of the mirror, pulling with all her strength, determined to bridge the distance between despair and salvation, but as she fought, a sharp pain knifed through her abdomen, a coldness that felt almost sentient grasped at her, clawing to keep her tethered to the darkness. The walls were pulsing, inching ever closer. "Let go, Emma." The darkness beckoned with glee. "Leave them behind, and join us." Panting, she shook her head violently, tears streaming as the final tendrils encroached on her reality. With renewed vigor, she screamed again, "I want to let you take them." Suddenly, the mirror fractured completely, releasing bursts of light and shadow, swallowing the room in wild colors. Emma felt herself slipping, the ground beneath twisting, but she clung to the vision of her children, their faces her anchor. Then, a blinding flash enveloped her, the laughter disintegrating into silence. Emma felt weightless, and then the world dropped away. Where was she? The remnants of darkness seemed to dissolve, but uncertainty lingered. Had she saved them? Or had she plunged deeper into an unspeakable nightmare? As her senses returned, she lay on cold stone. A soft voice called her name. But who was there? Emma blinked through the haze, spine tingling with dread. What new horror awaited in this uncharted realm? "Mommy?" The voice was sweet yet chilling, the echo of her deepest fears rolling over. Emma's heart raced as she turned. What awaited her in the shadows? The darkness shifted, enveloping Emma in a suffocating embrace. She squinted against the dim light, her heart racing, ears ringing with the fading echoes of her children's laughter. There, amid the flickering shadows, stood a figure, a child, small and hunched, clutching something tightly to their chest. Lily. The name crawled from Emma's throat, but it tasted bitter. The figure didn't move, just stared blankly, eyes glinting like sharp steel. "Mommy, come play." The voice chimed again, but it wasn't Lily's. It was laced with an unsettling sing-song quality, pulling at Emma's sanity. The laughter that once gripped her now twisted into something darker, hinting at a cruel game she was unwittingly part of. "Where are you?" she rasped, stepping forward. Each movement felt like wading through thick fog, as if the very air conspired to hold her back. The child giggled, a sound that felt too hollow, too echoing in the silence around them. Just over here you have to choose. Emma's skin prickled. Choose what? What do you want? The figure took a step back, revealing a crude black doll, its button eyes scrunched tight, as if in perpetual fear. The child clutched it tightly, fingers curled around it like a vice. Lily? Jacob? She felt helpless, words slipping like grains of sand through her fingers. Where were her children? The gnawing dread coiled tighter around her heart as the child's giggle morphed into a mockery. Another flicker of light shone through the shadows. Emma turned her head, trying to decipher if it was an escape, or entrapment. The stone walls pulsated, and in that moment, the air crackled with anticipation. Come play with us. The raspy voice floated from every corner, curling around her mind like smoke, smothering hope in a blanket of fear. Play. Emma whispered, terror coursing through her. The figure stepped forward, breaking the silhouette of shadows that flickered behind them. The dilapidated room unfolded around her, revealing more children's faces stained with tear tracks, foreboding smiles stretched too wide. Choose who you save, they chimed in unison, their voices building into a haunting crescendo. Join us or lose them. The weight of their words crushed down on her. A wave of darkness rolled over her, pressing in with violent force. She clenched her eyes shut, fighting against the madness that threatened to drown her. Emma, a soft whisper clawed its way into her consciousness, piercing the haze around her. It was sweet, familiar, a fragile lifeline. Help us! It was the voice of her daughter, but drowning beneath the clamor of the shadows, it felt impossibly far away. No! Emma screamed, a primal rage slicing through the fear. She couldn't give in. Whatever this was, it needed her to break. To fall apart. With one heaving breath, she opened her eyes and shoved against the grasping shadows. I choose my children. She declared, each word a battle cry. The onslaught faltered for a heartbeat, the laughter choking into silence. As the echo settled, the weight of the choice hung heavy in the air. The children, flickering like flames, darted closer, their faces both pleading and mischievous. The shadows writhed back, but they weren't done. Then take your place, dear Emma, the darkness hushed, wrapping around her like a lover's embrace. Every choice has a price. The cold seeped back into her bones as the figures loomed in closer with unsettling smiles. Emma realized with horror that the game had just begun, and then, a voice sharper, more insistent spoke from the shadows. Will you pay the price? The room spiraled into chaos, leaving Emma breathless, heart racing as ice gripped her soul. She was running out of time, running out of choices. Where were Lily and Jacob? But the laughter returned, high and mocking, as the shades circled her, their intentions dark and hungry. What would she do next? Would she risk everything to save her children, or succumb to the darkness surrounding her? The walls echoed the either or melody, as she felt herself teetering further into despair. Emma's breath hitched, the weight of the darkness pressing against her chest like a vice. She felt the tug of despair in her gut, but she had no time for weakness. Mustering every ounce of courage, she steeled herself and scanned the room for any hint of light. Show me my kids. She shouted, voice wavering but resolute. The shadows recoiled, split apart like dark smoke billowing back in a storm. In the newfound space, a figure began to emerge, and her heart leaped. It was another child, blonde and radiant, but even from a distance, Emma felt something critical was amiss. The smile was too wide, too bright, and the dim light cast shadows in all the wrong places. Mommy! The figure cried, arms flailing with juvenile energy. As it rushed into view, Emma staggered back, horrified to see it was not her daughter, but a haunting imitation. Not Lily. She gasped, realizing with sickening dread that this wasn't her sweet girl. This was a game, a sick twist of the truth that crushed her bones with realization. Join us. The faceless group of children sang, their voices a chilling symphony that blended with the drumming of her heart. Help us play forever. Get away from me. Emma screamed, pulling away from their disfigured smiles. Frantic, she stumbled back into the darkness, the cold wrapping around her like barbed wire, leaving angry, red welts on her skin. The shadows danced and curled, grasping for her as if to drag her down into an abyss. Emma, you do want them back, don't you? Whispered the darkness, its breath a swarm of whispers that echoed through her skull. Just tell me where they are. She felt the need for answers clawing at her throat. I'll do anything. For a moment, everything fell still. The laughter faded into chilling silence, and Emma could hear her heartbeat thundering like a drum in the oppressive void. It felt like the calm before a storm, a moment swelling with the promise of horror. Your choice comes next, it finally hissed through the shadows, voice oily and dripping with menace. Then, the room shifted again, walls folded and crumbled as if the very structure of reality was warping around her. Emma grasped at her surroundings, feeling the rough stone beneath her fingers give way to something slick and wrong. The air thickened, and she felt her thoughts jumble beneath the pressure. Choose, Emma, the children intoned in unison, their features squirming, melting, and reforming into faces she almost recognized. One child morphed into a miniature version of Jacob, eyes wide and innocent yet the mouth twisted into an unnatural grin. No. She willed herself to remain strong. You're not real. Neither are you. They echoed back, mocking her, their voices a cacophony that filled her ears with jagged chords. Emma threw herself forward, determined to break through the wall of laughing children. But as her hands smashed through the hollow illusion, the room erupted into a cyclone of shadows and light, laughter morphing into screams of terror. Will you play the right way? They cried, echoing with dark, forked tongues. The game was fraying her sanity like a worn-out thread, with something joyless trapped in her throat. She shouted, I will save them. Then the price must be paid. The shadows rippled violently, drawing closer, bearing down on her with a suffocating weight. A vision struck her. She could see Lily and Jacob, their faces pressed against a whispering veil of charcoal dark. The chilling truth coiled cold around her like a serpent ready to strike. What would she lose in her bid to save them? Would it mean giving away the last shreds of her very being? In that moment, she understood this was no longer about simple choices, it was about sacrifices. The swirling darkness shifted again, frantic and desperate, looming larger. Emma felt it, the game closing in, the stakes rising beyond comprehension. Will you lose yourself to save them? And as the laughter echoed deafeningly, she realized she was already part of the horror. Each flicker of the shadows warned her, the true cost was yet to be revealed. A crack split the room, a flash of blinding light that felt both foreign and familiar. Emma stumbled, shielding her eyes from the glare. The cacophony of laughter twisted into a gut-wrenching wail that scraped against her nerves. Shadows coiled around her legs, like serpents, whispering, teasing, tightening their grip. Let go. She screamed, feeling the bile rise in her throat. She had to break free. Each second felt like a dagger, plunging deeper into her resolve, taunting her with memories of laughter, the warmth of her children, now shadows of what had been. The blinding light faded, but there was no escape. The room pulsed, the walls now rippling like the surface of a disturbed pond. Fragments of memories scattered around her, images of family dinners, Lily's joyful giggles, Jacob's innocent mischief. They twisted, transformed, and bled into the mockery of the shadows that danced before her. Join us, Mommy. The faceless children sang again, their voices honeyed and sickening. We're waiting. A whisper wove through her thoughts, cold and slick like ice. Remember what you felt when you lost them. Stop it. Emma's voice cracked. How could they know her pain? Each syllable tore at her insides like an exposed nerve. She pushed through the rising tide of despair, her heart hammering in her chest, each beat a reminder of her vulnerability. You'll never find them, the shadows taunted, shifting in a grotesque ballet. You'll forget them just like they forgot you. Lies. Emma shouted, fists clenched tight. She closed her eyes, focusing. She pictured her children, held them close in her mind, blocking out the darkness surrounding her. The shadows recoiled, hissing in discontent. She sensed their fear. Inspiration surged within. If they could be shaken, there was still hope. Look for the light. A voice inside urged. It's there, always. Suddenly, a small burst of brightness flickered to her left. Distant yet vivid, it pulsed like a heartbeat. Lily. Jacob. She cried, racing toward it, each step feeling heavier, nearer to a precipice. The children's laughter returned, distorted and shrill, edging on madness. You'll never get to them. Not while you're lost. Emma broke into a sprint, fighting every pull, every chilling whisper. She reached the light, stretching out her hands as dim figures emerged in its glow. Mommy. Two familiar voices echoed back. The silhouettes of her children flickered, then faded, swallowed up by the darkness again. No. Emma stumbled back, panic igniting a fire in her veins. I want to let you take them. She felt their presence, a tether woven through the fabric of the darkness. They were there, just beyond reach, struggling like her. Sacrifice, the shadows whispered, the word coiling around her thoughts. The air thickened with dread, and Emma's heart quaked as realization dawned. What weight must she carry to drag them back? Choose, Emma. The children's faces twisted again, forms warping, eyes narrowing into slits of ink. What will you give up to save them? Her mind raced. She could feel the darkness waiting, aching with anticipation. Please, the word slipped out, raw and urgent. Please, just give me a chance. Then silence engulfed her. No laughter, no whispers. Just the throbbing of her own heart pounding against the walls of her chest. Your soul, or perhaps, your sanity. Emma's breath caught. The two doors loomed before her, safety for her children or the fragments of her sanity. Which would she hang on to? The shadows pulsed closer, waiting, hungry for her resolution. As cold realization settled in her bones, she knew the answer was just a heartbeat away. Emma's heart raced, clenching tightly around the truth that coiled deep within her. She could feel the weight of each choice pressing down on her, ready to crush her if she faltered. The laughter of the children faded, replaced by a deafening silence, a heavy pause, pregnant with untold horrors. Your soul or your sanity? The darkness teased, its voice a slithering whisper that spiraled around her mind. Her instincts screamed against the unseen forces urging her to choose. The faces of her children flickered in her mind's eye, Lily's bright smile, Jacob's inquisitive gaze. They should have been here, playing without fear. But they were trapped, lingering in the chaotic shadows. Desperation surged through her veins, igniting a fierce determination. In this moment, she grasped the real power of love and sacrifice. I choose my children, she proclaimed, voice soaring above the cries of the dark. With each word, conviction carved through her fear. As if struck by lightning, the shadows recoiled, a howling gust of wind swirling around her, threatening to tear her apart. She could feel their fury, could sense the very fabric of reality shuddering at her audacity. But she didn't back down, she dug deeper, calling on the love that tied her to her children. It was the purest kind of strength, one that could shatter the illusions woven in darkness. The murky air lightened as sparkles of warmth began to break through the shadows. The echoes of childhood laughter twisted, unraveling into a sweet symphony. Mommy. Their voices cut through the thick fog, wrapping around her like a soft embrace. Hope erupted in her chest, pushing her forward. Stay strong, she shouted to the flickering figures of her children just out of reach. I'm coming. Hold on. The shadows shrieked, a deafening chorus demanding she submit. But Emma was no longer paralyzed by fear. She wove through the fading darkness, feeling the warmth of her children's presence guiding her. The laughter grew clearer, their pleas transforming into cries of joy. Mommy, please. She raced toward the glowing light, her only beacon in this nightmare, clawing at the edges of reality. With every step, she felt the pull of the darkness beginning to yield. The faces of lost children began to fade, their twisted grins melting into shadows as they became aware of her power. "Goodbye," she cried, ready to sever any ties that sought to trap her. With that, she launched herself toward the light, an explosion of warmth engulfing her. It was life, hope, and most importantly, it was freedom. As she surged forward, the darkness screamed, tearing apart like paper in a fire. Suddenly, all fell silent. Emma opened her eyes to blinding light. Her heart fluttered in her chest. How long had she fought? Where were Lily and Jacob? "Mommy!" The familiar voice broke through. She spun around to find her children rushing toward her, their faces radiant with joy, untainted by darkness. "Lily! Jacob!" She collapsed to her knees, wrapping her arms around them, feeling the warmth of their bodies grounding her. Tears of relief flowed freely down her cheeks as they hugged her tightly. "I thought I lost you." She couldn't believe they were here, safe and within her grasp. The shadows had tried to claim them, but they had triumphed together. "I knew you'd come for us," Lily breathed, and Emma's heart soared at the innocence in her voice. Jacob nodded fervently, tucking himself under her arm, a tiny bastion of safety amidst the aftershocks of darkness, but the battle wasn't over. The shadows still lingered on the fringes, their whispers echoing like distant thunder. Emma stood her ground, determination glowing now like embers against the fading night. The old house creaked, but it felt different, no longer an entity against her, but now simply a memory of what had once haunted her. "We have to leave," she urged her kids, her voice steady. Together. With hands locked, they stepped back through the threshold, leaving behind the sinister echo of the house and whatever dark fate awaited. Together, they walked away into the warm embrace of the sunrise. As the past faded like a dream, Emma turned one last time to face the house. "You'll never take my children again," she whispered, resolve strong and unwavering. Those echoes had been vanquished, but their lingering memories served as a reminder of the strength she had found within. As they crossed the tree line, laughter erupted anew, joyous and free, swirling around them like petals in the wind. Emma felt a swell of hope. The shadows had been fierce, but she had chosen the light. And side by side, they stepped into a future unshackled from fear, one filled with possibility for laughter, love, and life anew. If you've enjoyed this gripping tale, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share it with your friends who need to hear this story. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm and ensure you don't miss out on more exclusive stories. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us keep this community alive together. Let us find more tales of courage and heart.